Yeah, it's been a lot of Bowie business going on. We've got Geraldine joining us as well. Hello, welcome. We haven't really got a topic, I have to say, apart from is the electric moustache the fashion icon of the future? And is it Bowie or Bowie? They are the two kind of possible talking points.
Yeah, the main ones.
It's kind of up to you. Those, I mean, I think we've got pretty much familiar faces, apart from Joel. I'm not sure if you're aware how this works. Basically, it's up to you to decide what you want to talk about.
The collective view.
If you don't come up with anything at all, then we just sit in silence. Which is fine.
I'll be able to hear everything's going on. I've only just got back. I've got loads to do around the flat. I want to make myself some, but I'll be able to hear everything. I'll chip in when I can.
Okay, yeah. Well,
thanks.
We're kind of used to that from you, Stephen. To be honest. But Victoria, have you got a starting point for us? An opening gambit, so to speak. You need to unmute yourself if you have got one. If you haven't got one, don't bother. No, you haven't got one. You have or you haven't? I don't know.
You're muted.
Mute, so we don't know. But we're welcoming Anissa into this. We actually, I mean.
Hi, Anissa.
We do really need. I mean, it could be anything. Let's not get too serious about this. It could be one of the fashion trends of 2021. Not just the thing about the electric moustache. It could be. Victoria, say something to me. Please unmute yourself. Just say something, just to test this out.
Hi, sorry. Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Hello. I mean, I think you might hate me for the start of this topic, but it's only because I haven't had a chance to discuss it with people, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's also old news. It's not news. It's not news anymore. But
yeah.
A chance to gather different people's opinions and wondering what you think about. And for me, it's still kind of one of the biggest things that happened recently. So what do you think of the fact that obviously, I'm going to talk about Twitter, the fact that Trump has been blocked on Twitter, because for me, it's very interesting news. Like I still think about it a lot, because even though I'm not a fan of his, but I was really surprised the fact that something like this happened in today's age without any kind of or anything like that. You know? Because obviously, like, America's like well known for its fair, like independent court system and stuff like that. And I thought it was really crazy that something has happened. Because even though, like, obviously, like, I'm not saying you don't have to ban to acknowledge the fact that. Like doing something like this, like blocking him on all social media, is like a social death, basically, and it's interesting shift. I feel like
maybe you a little bit.
I've been like quite interested in, for example, your society stuff. For me, it really sorry.
We just lost you a little bit there, but from what I'm getting from what you're saying is, in America, land of the free.
Yeah.
Does Trump have a right to tweet?
Because basically it's very reminiscent of like USSR to me personally, and it's just the fact that he'd been like without going to court and trying to judge him there,
without following
basically the society like or some people decided to make this judgment. So for me, it's a very like crazy topic, which I think I'm just curious about people's opinions.
So as they say in America, they're not following due process. They've just decided to ban Trump from Twitter. Does Trump have a right to tweet? Do we all have our rights to tweet?
Well, that's not even the right to tweet. It's more like.
And it's being banned from social media. Let's put things in
the context of today. Banning someone from social media from all different channels is like social type of death, and then like isn't it better to just like leave it to professional court system to actually figure out what exactly happened, like what exactly he's done wrong if he's done that.
Okay, we've got some
otherwise it's very easy. I feel like it's a bit of a like, where does it end at the moment? And it also sets like an example for other countries, because they will be like saying, for me, like I guess I'll look at it for example in the context of USSR and stuff like that, because
from
I don't know. Just curious, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what is the process? Do people have a right to social media? Is being banned from social media a social debt? Do other countries actually follow America? What does it mean in other countries? I mean, we were just doing a thing in Uganda at the end of last year where they actually switched off the internet for the election. Katie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, well, that's not even there.
What was that, Victoria?
Well, I mean, you know, even in Belarus, like when they had election this summer, they
Switched off the
I mean, it's not the unique case when, you know, internet is being switched off by the government, but it's a bit of a different maybe topic.
Okay, let's go to Katie.
I think it's a very good question, and I also thought about it when it happened, and I actually agree with the idea why he was banned, and I think the parallel would be that, you know, if you see someone walking down the street and lighting every building on fire, you don't wait for the court order to stop that person. Like, you don't even need a policeman to stop that person. Any random passerby seeing a person lighting buildings on fire should, I believe, in normal society, do everything they can to stop them. And later comes the time for the due process. I think it depends on the, and even though, you know, we have freedom of action, it doesn't mean we can light buildings on fire. That's one point. And the second point is that on Twitter or on anything, I know very few people read, but there is something called terms and conditions. It's like, even there are terms and conditions for living in society in like certain countries. There are laws. So you go on the internet, there are also certain laws, and it depends on where you are on the internet. So on Twitter, certain things are not allowed. If someone does that, they should be banned, in my opinion. I mean, that otherwise someone is getting special treatment and getting exempt for the rules. So there has to be good reason for that too. Like, and in this case, I believe it was quite close to lighting buildings on fire in parallel.
Okay, so in a way, it's a kind of emergency that you have to stop the damage being done, no matter what the due process is.
Yeah.
Has anyone read the terms and conditions of any social media?
Has anyone seen actually those tweets that have been like, that they used, that he is banned for?
I think Katie has, but other people may not have.
I must admit, I don't really read terms of conditions. I always like to think I'm a better person, and I, you know, I would read those things, but I think they on purpose make it just so long. They're really long documents, and it's very hard to actually have, you know, to find the time, long and dry, filled with crickets. But it's just, I think it's constructed in a way to trip people up. But actually, I think everybody should get like thrown off social media, and then, yeah, we don't really need it. But Geraldine's got a nice point in the chat saying website and social media sites are like land. There are landowners. There's a question mark as well.
Like,
so
get off my land! Get off my land!
But for instance, you know, it's important to know. So, like, you know, speaking of terms and conditions, like if you upload a picture on Instagram, they own it. So, or for, I mean, I only read it like twice in my life, terms and conditions in terms of social media. Like, yeah. So, but it's important, and it actually changes your perspective big time when you read it.
What were the tweets that he was banned for, please?
What are you saying, Geraldine? Come in on this.
Sorry, what were the tweets that Trump was banned for?
What do they actually say? Did you?
Yes.
You don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Does anyone?
You can look it up, or someone can look it up. But actually, the point is, like, I actually wasn't that much impressed, or whenever I was reading the article.
I couldn't hear that one there, Victoria. You've got a little bit of a dodgy connection. But let's try and bring some other people in on this. I've noticed that George has logged on. At the moment, we're talking about, does Donald Trump have the right to tweet? Should Twitter be forced to follow a due legal process, or are they like the landowners that own Twitter and it's their land to do however they see fit? That's
okay,
where we are right now.
I can send a link, because to figure out why he was banned for those tweets. Again, the context is important, and the article talks about the context. I put the link on the chat. I'm not sure if now is enough time to go through the whole story, because those tweets was kind of a last drop in a cup.
Yeah. Was it the straw that broke the camel's back? We're talking about.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but again, the context is important, and this article, I think, is a decent starting point to figure out what happened.
Okay, well, we're talking about Donald Trump and does he have the right to tweet? John has just joined us. Should he have been banned? Anissa, you made a point there in the chat about abuse and harassment. Do you want to follow up on that, Anissa?
Like, before you make an Instagram account, so you have to agree to the terms and conditions. So you have to agree not to abuse or harass anyone online. Yeah. Are you on any social media accounts, and did you read the terms and conditions before? Instagram, I have Instagram, Snapchat, and I always read the terms and conditions. For example, if you harass anyone, or if your account could get permanently closed down.
Okay, so no harassment.
Yes, but also it's super I'm sorry, but people are selling drugs on Twitter or Instagram, and nobody's blocking those accounts. And that has been there's lots of documentaries about it. How it's just so biased. That's what drives me crazy. There are lots of documentaries on kids selling drugs online, and lots of people reporting those accounts, and now they're not being banned. And that's the point. This is pretend justice, in my opinion, because it's rarely biased.
It's not. Is it really fair? Is it just? Is it evenly and equally? Do we even? I think this touches on a wider point, which is about
exactly.
What are the limits of free speech? Where does it become
That's
something
what I'm
else?
going. That's exactly what I'm saying, because it's people that's why I'm bringing a court justice system, because at the end of the day, people that created these that are also created to highlight the most hateful comments, and people that are making justice, it's not maybe the best way to go about it, because is it the best way? This is up for discussion, in my opinion, because there are lots of things that are still out there, and the people prostitution just going on through social media and stuff like that. I'm sure it's happening, and that's not being banned at all. Nobody cares.
Okay, George, you wanted to come in on this one?
I'm not sure. It's a bit of a square kind of opinion, but when you're using a system say Works Computers, or in fact, anyone else's, even if you're using it as a service, you are using their computer, right? You're using your data is on their systems, so it is their prerogative whether you like it or not. That's not necessarily what you're talking about here, but
it's whoever owns the server can decide what they want to have on their server.
Well, pretty much, yeah. Information possession is 9/10 of the intellectual property law or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to the tweets, as soon as you make a tweet, Twitter own it. Donald Trump don't actually own it, and if they want to delete it, they're welcome to.
Well, if he doesn't, if he doesn't like that, he's as free as you or I am to.
Yeah, that's true. But let's put it in a context that today everyone has to be on social. Lots of people have to do it on social media for business. It's it's just not so easy, I guess.
But isn't that like saying that if you have an interview in the newspaper, that the newspaper owns that interview, no matter what you say?
Okay, well, these are all questions. Let's bring some other people in on this. There's a few people that have said nothing at all. Stephen's excuse is he's doing the cooking. Delhi, you've not said anything. Joel, we've not heard anything from you, or John. So, although I don't know if John's on.
John's in.
In the chat.
Thanks, Victoria. I've got the link. Wicked.
That's really great to have a bit of background as well. What do other people think about this? Is this about?
I think I will speak. In regards with Donald Trump, I think he's abusing the power he's got. And I think anyone who's on social media trying to incite racism, divisionism, shouldn't be allowed to be on the system. He is an arrogant, ugly man, and very definitely unaccepted in society. He's just not on at all. And I think he terribly think and sincerely believe he should be banned from social media for some time because of
I mean,
incitement studios.
Is being arrogant and unpleasant a reason to be banned?
Yeah, but he was exciting divisionism, isn't it? He was trying to incite people to follow him. And I don't see any reason why he should do that at all. It's an election. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever loses, loses, you know. So why is he not accepting the fact that he's lost and trying to incite hatred and racism and divisionism? That's the question.
Sorry, it's not so much about him even, like, you know, I'm not like his supporter or anything like that, but I wouldn't like vote for him if I was American, I guess, but I don't live there now. But at the same time, it's just brings the topic of free. For me, it's personally more about like topic of free speech, because where does it end? You know, because it's, like I said before in the beginning, that it's really because it's just complex. It's a very complex topic, and it's not so much about him as much as about like. Who decides what is like justice, you know, at this point.
Okay, well, Joel's just stuck his camera on. So do you want to actually say something here? Welcome to Talkaoke.
Hi, Mikey. Hi, Margot.
Hello.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just off camera because I'm a bit like Steve and just not on camera.
Just cooking.
Yeah, I think there's been some really interesting points raised. I think lots of people do get taken off Twitter a lot. I think it's just a really high profile case. But you're right that people get missed all the time, but I think it's just really hard to regulate. I mean, I'm just fascinated by that company, how it you know, it just doesn't exist in the same way like a normal company. It's the value is really obscure, right? Twitter, the way it kind of works.
It doesn't make anything. It just
doesn't make anything. It's sort of like, what is it? Like, I just I think that's all that's on my mind about that. There's just so much out there on the internet, and the unregulation of it makes it a very difficult topic to dissect.
Should the internet be more regulated? Katie, you've been itching to jump in.
Thank you. No, just to come back to the topic that, you know, drug dealers are not banned, why he was banned. Well, I think any drug dealer that would be selling drugs to millions of people would be banned pretty quickly. I think, again, it comes down to how much harm is being done, how many people are harmed, whether it's millions or whether it's 2, 3, 500, 1,000. 100,000 is way less than 10, 50, 70 millions. So I think in this case, it's like if someone goes and shouts something very insulting in a forest, no one is going to care.
Yeah.
Even if there will be some squirrels or even one another human listening to it. However, if the country's leader is talking about things like that, like insurrection and so on, it's way different. So again, lighting a match in house may not be the best thing to do, or even lighting a match in a national reserve may not be a good thing to do, and it may be even illegal, but no one will start chasing you with a fire truck and police. But if you start lighting buildings on fire, then it's a different case.
Okay.
I was just halfway through typing a message that, as you said, mentioned squirrels. We normally have a sound effect, and I was worried that Mikey is not going to be able to cue it up quickly enough, but he did. By the time I finished typing the message, there it was. That was the squirrels.
I think that behind the scenes, there was a lot of controversy because we got rid of the squirrels for the crickets. We couldn't have the squirrels and the crickets. It was a tough call.
It was.
And then it was like, no one's going to mention squirrels. And
this is 22 minutes into the game.
Squirrels have already been mentioned.
So that's a lesson to be learned. And I would just like to welcome John. Welcome back, by the way. Hopefully your sound works now. Does your sound work now? Can you unmute? We can lip read you, but
John,
it will be hard.
You've got to unmute.
If you can do it. But I would just like to point out that the visualizations behind Mikey tonight, they are courtesy of our fantastic Laura. She's doing the visualizations tonight. So that, and Rick, sorry.
Don't
so
forget Rick.
yeah, no. I thought this was Laura because it's slightly different style, but it's actually Rick.
Yeah,
Rick is a chameleon.
We've expanded the visuals team. But anyway, let's get back on with the conversation.
Try.
Where are we going to go from here? Do we want to talk about what are the limits of free speech? Have we even got a definition for it? Is it up to private companies? Is it up to individuals? Is it up to governments? You know, who's actually going to do this for us? Victoria?
No, I just wanted to say that, you know, basically what an article, when I was reading about this, yes, read an article that, and that kind of made I think a decent point that you might not agree with him and whatnot, and it's fine, but there's like a bunch of people that voted for him, so it's kind of
but in a sense, he is a leader. Whether he
kind of like you're moving in a position in a way. Like, is that okay? You know, like, I mean, it's just for me. It's I think people that come maybe from people that know a bit more like about USSR history, they like understand that it's so like it's, you know, it's just not in some ways. Because there are like 17 million people who vote for him. It's a bit like, you know, and the question is like, is there going to be any court, any like, anything happening in the court, or you know, if ban him, maybe just like, why don't you just ban him for like a couple of days or something? It's a bit, it just feels like somehow people are putting
it's very
all the faith in these developers, and
it's very authoritarian, isn't it?
Huh?
It's authoritarian, just to say.
Yeah, it just feels very authoritarian, and it's a bit like a scary sign to me, I guess. That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to come to you, Katie. But
even though, like I said, you don't have to agree. Like, you don't, you know, and you don't have to be his supporter to see that. My point is.
I see.
And you can understand the context, sort of, and everything, but you don't. But it's still like a sign to me.
Online fora can be pretty brutal, though, in terms of a court of public opinion.
Okay, so the court of public opinion. I just want to. We've got a new face in Jojo. I just want to say welcome, Jojo, to the chat. Right now, we're talking about Donald Trump. Does he have the right to tweet? What are the limits of free speech? Who decides? Is it the company that runs the platform? Is it the court? Is it the court of the internet? That's what we're talking about right now. In the end, you know, what's best? Is it actually better if the people themselves decide? And as Victoria mentioned, like, a lot of people are supporters of Donald Trump. I just want to say welcome as well to Danny.
Hi, Danny.
I've just literally done a rundown. We're talking about Donald Trump. Does he have the right to tweet or not? Should he be banned? That's where we are right now. So yeah, that's where we are. Casey, what's your point?
Thank you. Well, if Hitler was alive, he had millions of followers. Would we allow him to tweet? Here is my question. Okay. Would we wait for him to be brought to a court and then ban him, or would we ban him straight away just because of what he says? And one of the reasons we would ban would be how many followers he has.
Okay, so Hitler, you would ban Hitler from Twitter?
I would ban Hitler in particular because he has many followers. If someone would be talking about those ideas and wouldn't have many followers, there isn't that much potential harm. There isn't that much negative influence to the society. Whereas that too many followers and going in the negative direction is much more harm to the society in general.
Okay, why is he looking at suicide?
Hang on, there's a few people talking about myself. I just wanted to bring Danny in on this one. Danny, what are you saying?
Well, I think everyone's got a right to speak their mind and that. So it's not a fair thing of picking someone out.
Yeah.
When you've got more people around the world causing more harm and destruction than him.
Than Donald Trump?
Well, yeah. Look at China at the minute. You've got Iran. And that all goes against the human rights, and they've all got Twitter accounts.
Yeah.
Instead of doing one person, they should do all.
Okay, so if they're going to do Donald Trump, should they do what's it called, Ahmadinejad, and the Ayatollah Khamenei? Should they do those people? And Yeah, I mean, you're saying that he's got a right to tweet, basically, Danny.
Yeah, and people have the right not to listen.
Mm.
So you can always ignore on the social media. That'd be the best thing. You don't have to. You can delete his messages and not see it. So it's only the mainstream media that are throwing it in our faces. If you don't follow them on Twitter, you don't see them.
Okay, so you've got a choice who you're going to follow on Twitter. You don't have to. I personally am not a follower of the real Donald Trump. So I see your point there. John, you've unmuted yourself. Have you got a point on this? John, can you hear us? I'll come to you. I'll come to you in a bit. I still can't hear you. But where are we going to go with this? Jojo, have you got any feelings on this? I feel like, to a certain extent, Jojo, you've got an investment in this question. What do you think about this? Do you think that we have got a kind of mechanism to actually, decide what the limits of freedom of speech are? Has Donald Trump crossed the line? Is it right for a private company to deny somebody access to their service? These are all the questions that are out at the moment. Victoria.
I just wanted to give an example of what kind of consequences could be of this for other countries. For example, let's say somewhere in Russia, they can say, well, they banned him there, so let's ban our position. Let's just remove our position completely from the internet. Yeah,
so that, I mean, there's equivalent. You're concerned about things that happen in other countries, and
in other more like authoritarian countries, that can be just like, let's just remove them.
Yeah. Okay. So there are other authoritarian countries.
That's like a bad example to me because, like, in terms of putting it in the context, because that, it just happens all over.
And just for those that have joined later on, you also earlier on mentioned the Soviet Union, and it does kind of worry you a little bit, like that it is a bit like the Soviet Union, in that if you start to decide who can and can't speak. I just want to, Jojo, you unmuted yourself. Do you want to come in on this one?
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Well, I don't have like a specific opinion or so. I'm not like into political things really. But I do really think he crossed the line a long time ago. Donald Trump. And use his behavior on Twitter and all that. It's too much, I think. But I don't know much about politics, to be honest.
Yeah, okay,
so I would rather listen for now, I think.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we're going to stick on politics all night. We'll see. This flows from subject to subject, so we don't know where it's going to go next. But just while you're on, Jojo, what do you think? What do you think was the moment that he crossed the line?
I don't know. Like, as I mentioned, I don't like to be on social media too much and reading and watching the news overall. But I think when social media and Twitter, Instagram, all those platforms are very powerful, and he's just been abusing it to the max. But I don't know exactly when, I would say.
But it was a long time ago, whenever that was. Yeah. Okay, Katie.
Thank you. Also, like, even though he was banned from certain platforms, he was not banned from the internet. So it's like, when someone has a fight in a bar, that bar may ban that person.
Yeah.
They may have a way to connect to other bars, but there will be the person can still go to a shop and buy a beer. It doesn't prevent him from drinking. It doesn't take away that freedom of his. So same way President Trump had all the internet, he can create his own software, his own platform, bring all the followers and just have them there. I mean, Parler was a very close thing to that because it collected millions of people who were banned. It wasn't just Trump. There were already millions of people banned before him from that platform for the same reasons. So
So in a way,
so I mean, and this is how it goes. They were banned from one place. They created their own new place.
Yeah, I quite like that.
Could do that until again that place got banned from the servers of Amazon because they decided they don't want to host such thing. Same way, certain other servers, some servers accept to host pornographic content. Some servers do not accept to host pornographic content. It is their choice, and no one is fighting for freedom of, let's say, pornography. Let's host it anywhere. Why is it restricted? Because it can be harmful to certain people. So it's up to those who provide the service to choose to whom they provide. Also in USA, for me, I see great parallels when there was a law case where a cake shop refused to cook a cake for a marriage of a homosexual couple. So they were told that, yes, they have a choice to refuse the customer because of their beliefs. So Twitter owners are owners of a private company. They can refuse the customer service according to the same principle in general, because of their own beliefs. And if you don't like, you go to another shop or another social media site.
Do you agree with this cake shop ruling that they had a right to deny the Bert and Ernie cake?
I think it works both ways. If they had the right there, Twitter had the right here. So we have to decide, you know. And if people were told, you know, you may disagree with our choice, but this is what the law system said, this is how in USA it works, then this is how in USA it works for Twitter too.
Okay, so this is a good point from Katie. So Twitter is not like a public thing. It's like a bar. We've walked into a bar, and it's up to the barman to decide whether you are banned or not. And they don't go through a judicial process. I mean, we've got Tommy Flowers pub up the road, and we've seen many people barred from that pub. There's not a judicial process. It's up to the landlord of the pub. So should it be the same with Twitter? It's up to Twitter to say, right, you're barred. You ain't coming back. So what do people think about that? Is that the right metaphor? It's my bar, and you ain't coming.
I mean, they restrict freedom of people to be in a public place. How fair is that?
I think what gets me every time apropos of like privately owned things is places like Canary Wharf, or there's loads of places around London where it's private land. It's in the city. Everyone can go there, but if you're homeless or if you look a certain way, there's going to be a very nice security guard who'll come to you and say, "Excuse me, get out," or whatever. I mean, I don't know how they actually. I don't know what the tone is. Maybe it's nicer than that. But you know, it kind of goes to show that if you've got money, you can just buy part of the city and just like kick people out of something that supposedly is a public space.
So we've got this idea of public, but it's not actually often there. It's just
a great metaphor actually, because it's just a great metaphor of like a private park. But I think it's just, you know, it's important also to realize that we are experiencing like a monopoly in social media. There's a handful of sites literally who it's not like doesn't work. There's actually kind of a monopoly happening, because obviously Facebook, Instagram, they like, you know, Facebook owns Instagram, WhatsApp. It's not like you can just go and just create. It's not as simple as that.
I mean, to be fair,
I feel like almost we don't have the language, or there's like there needs to be like a process that just gonna find the middle ground between these private companies and.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see the people speak as a public space that anyone can come and talk and say anything they want. I'd be reluctant. I think you'd have to really abuse the rules. There's actually 2 rules on Talkaoke: no fighting and no singing. But anything else is really, you know, and that fighting also means kind of offending other people, I suppose. But
we don't have
a public. We're trying to create a public space,
but we don't have like a TNC document, do we?
Do
we get people to?
No.
But I wanted to just put something in about the public spaces. I just remembered a couple of weeks ago I was researching how easy or how difficult would it be to have a bench or plant a bush in a public space to commemorate somebody's life. And I thought it's just going to be like quite tricky because, you know, there's probably everybody wants to do that. And very easy. You can do it very easily. You can get a bench for 900 quid, depending on the borough. If it's a bit of a upmarket borough, it's about £1,000. You can dedicate a tree, 500 quid. And it's very easy and very easy to set up. So that's one of the things I've discovered.
It's still 500 quid though, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's not like
I know, but it's you know, but if you think about it, I mean, I think people attach a lot of value to something that's, you know, to things which are very like private and personal, and therefore, you know, it's quite hard to put a price tag on it. But the council put a price tag on it, and it's okay. You know, people probably pay that.
Actually,
I'm just Victoria. Hang on a second.
Last thing, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna shut.
I just want to bring in Natalie because I've seen a point in the chat, and Natalie's not said anything yet. And what were you saying about? Do you think soon we'll have to pay to go into parks? What was the point there, Natalie? Do you want to come in, or do you want to say it on the chat? In fact, Geraldine's come in as well. That in certain parks in China, you've got to pay to go to the park. Is that the way we're going to go with this?
But what are you paying for?
And yeah, what are you paying to perambulate, I suppose? Where are we going to go with this conversation? Do we want to talk about public space? Do we want to talk about free speech? Do we want to talk about this sense of public?
One more example of like, you know, for example, one day, for example, Apple decides to disable all their, like, I don't know, MacBook Pros or iPhones for some kind of reason. Yeah. That's it. You just can't do anything. And that's my point about like private companies making decisions, stuff like that. It's like, yeah, where does it end? Kind of. So one day you could just
streaming this through an Apple Mac. Apple could decide that it doesn't want us to stream this and just switch off our.
Yeah, well, it's like I believe it's possible. They can do it, you know, because they have your access to your computer.
Paul, you were going to come in there. Paul, come in, Paul. I saw that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, right. There we go. I was fiddling around with technical things. I think, like I've intimated there, that free space and speech are related. Like Speaker's Corner, that's a great example, isn't it? You don't have to pay to get there. You don't have to pay to listen. You can always walk away. I've had arguments with so-called Buddhist ascended masters there. It's great.
Really? Why did you pick Buddhist ascended masters to argue?
Because he told me I didn't understand the nature of evil.
Right, I see.
And then he's bounced. Yeah, well, I'm not sure. I mean, you know, it's a strange thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Paul, I already want to have a deep conversation with you.
Don't go there.
Go on to the nature of evil. I see Joel's coming in on this one. Joel?
Just Speaker's Corner it's just an early version of social media, though, in that you know it was put there for that purpose. You can't do that anywhere in Hyde Park. It's very specifically do that there. So it's kind of regulated in that sense.
Okay, so it's like a space, but it's a very special space where you can say whatever you want.
Yeah. You can't really in the rest of the park.
So is there a law about it? Like you can say whatever very controversial racist things, and actually it's fine because it's a free speech corner, and in that particular spot, it's okay.
It's something along those lines. It's very much set up for like free speech. Yeah.
Can you say whatever you want? Can you say racist, outwardly racist stuff? Can you say like stuff that's obviously offensive, or are there limits to what you can say at Speaker's Corner?
I don't know off the top of my head, sorry.
Okay, well, we'll have to go down there and find out. So where are we going to go with this conversation? Danny, I see you've unmuted yourself. Have you got a point about this?
Well, speech is never free. You always end up paying for it some way or another.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm an advocate for free speech, really. I just say whatever's on my mind.
Yeah.
These are offense, but it's just the way you are.
It's more of an ideal than a reality, though. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, it is. It's just no matter what you say, someone is always going to pick up on the point.
Yeah.
So you could say one thing, the sky is blue. They go, no, it ain't. It's grey sometimes. It's just how people put their views across.
Yeah,
That's
and they're going to hold that against you for the rest of your life.
Oh,
yeah.
Arguments over the sky is blue.
Yeah. Okay, so is speech ever free?
Again, like you said, it's about the idea. It's not. We all live in a three-dimensional world, and not in a bubble. So it's more about the idea rather than like anything. Anything is more about the idea rather than.
So we can't actually. Yeah, exactly. So we can't actually. It's more of an ideal. It's something that we are striving towards. I mean, where do we want to go with this conversation? Do we want to talk about do we want to talk about? I feel like if we're getting a bit too kind of, it almost feels like a sort of legalistic discussion now, which is fine. But I just feel like we need some real examples. We've heard about Donald Trump. We've heard about the Bert and Ernie gay cake. But do we need some other examples? Do we need some other sort of like things to cut out our kind of teeth around? Obviously, you can get your teeth around the cake. Paul, Danny, yeah?
Well, as I said, they say we have got free speech. But look at the minute, we're living in a well, Britain has become the most open prison going at the minute.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been restricted from doing what we can. I know the virus is bad and it's killing a hell of a lot of people. But on the one hand, they're saying we've got free speech, and then we can't go outside our house and, at certain times, otherwise we'll be fined, persecuted, everything at the minute. So
I'm going to have to cut you off there, Danny, because you're getting too dangerous. So sorry, I'm going to throw you off of this now.
Yeah, it is a bit awkward.
Yeah. Okay, so are we actually allowed the free speech when it comes to COVID, Paul?
Okay, so I'm going to pull apart two things first. So what is, when you walk into a cafe and you ask for a chicken sandwich, that chicken is being cooked to the right temperature. Someone's cleaned their hands before they've cooked it, and also when they've served it to you. They're public hygiene concerns. So we have social hygiene concerns, which are about the bigger things that we do all the time. So with that in mind, the whole COVID thing is get the fuck out of society, put yourself in a little place for a while and get out the way. Very simple, but very hard to do. Now, if you're a consumer like me, that's one thing. If you have something to say, that's another thing. It can be the same thing. You can actually put your mouth where your pocket is, as it were, and you don't put money into someone's pocket. So you don't buy from Amazon. You go to your local shop. You can walk to your local shop. You're not restricted from walking to your local shop. So then you have the ability to chat with someone on the street. You can chat with someone on the street, but you just have to be a bit distant, and you can arrange to meet someone to chat with them on the street. But then when you talk about free speech, it's about moderation. Now, who has an internal moderator? Who doesn't actually think about what they're going to say? It might upset someone else. Well, tough shit, isn't it? But also, it might be upsetting to other people. Being sensitive to others is a skill and also a virtue. So that's one thing. It's actually a couple of things there.
Yeah,
so I think what happens is being able to have conversations in public with other people that are approaching something that's quite, just day to day. Get on with it.
So what are you saying? You're saying that this is a kind of social hygiene?
Absolutely, Mont.
Yeah. But what do other people think about this? Are we being denied our freedoms here? Or is it just more of a question of a kind of like medical approach? I saw some flickers on the face of Geraldine. I don't know if you want to come in here. about this. How do you feel about this? Anita seems to be curious.
It's a reset, it's a regroup, it's everything's the same.
You think it's the same?
Maybe. That's the first flow of thought from it. A reset, a regroup.
Reset. Okay, reset. And normalize this kind of behavior.
Normalize this, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Anissa, you've got your hand up, and this is a great use of the raised hand function, which other people can adopt. You don't have to, but it's very useful to know who wants to speak when. Anissa, what were you going to say?
Just the COVID situation in general. I think like UK, they've taken so long to get to the vaccine, whereas New Zealand, I heard they are COVID free.
Yeah.
I don't understand how UK, like the virus is going to be a year. I think in March has taken so long for them.
Okay, so compared to New Zealand, we've done quite badly. I think no one can argue against that. But what about the question of, Joel, you've got your hand up, so I'm going to come straight to you.
I might just argue that I think we got to the vaccine quicker, but they closed their borders, so they dealt with it in a different way.
So
definitely dealt with it better, but I just think.
And where do you stand on it? Do you think our freedoms are being denied, or is it like justified? Is it about re-normalizing a lack of contact, as Geraldine is saying?
Yeah, I like the sound of that. I think that's good from Geraldine.
So you're kind of agreeing on that. Are we normalizing?
One thing I was interested in that came up about like monopolies of like computers and social networks. I think it's quite interesting at the moment that people are like leaving various platforms, and that seems to happen in waves. You get people who kind of, I've had enough of that, and I think that'll happen. I think it'll happen probably to something quite big like email as well. I think email will be gone.
Right. So people will
10 years or something.
Email.
Yeah, there's something else will come along. We don't know what it is yet, but there'll be some new form of communication.
I'd be really happy if that happens, I have to say.
Me too.
Okay, so no more emails. What other platforms are people leaving? Is it about, I think you made this point as well, Paul, in a way that you're saying people are consumers, so they can decide where they want to tweet or where they want to say stuff. That's a kind of freedom in itself. Danny, you had your hand raised, or was it just like a twitch?
A tweet.
Scratching your head.
Huh?
Okay, that sounds like it was a twitch or a scratch. Paul, what were you going to say?
Okay. Well, I think I tend to just come back to empathy in these conversations, to be honest, as a starting point. It's also like a philosophical point as well. I think what it is about just understand, very hard to, when you're isolated, to actually understand that other people exist, because all you've got is your own little Plato's cave, which is actually a thought experiment. I don't know if you know of it.
Oh, come on, tell us about Plato's cave. For those who don't know about
it. All right, it's my favorite. It's my favorite. All right, so what happens is that what it is, you're in a cave and you've got one source of light coming in from the entrance, and there's some smaller sources of light around you that cast shadows, and you're in a cave and you're chained up, and all you can see is the wall. You can hear other people and you can talk to other people, but all you can see is your own shadow on the wall. Now, the premise is that when you're set free, you go out of the exit and it's all bright, and you look out the exit and you tell everyone how great it is out there, but no one can listen, or rather no one listens because they're only seeing their own shadows and they don't believe you.
So they're not used to like a three-dimensional world. They can only see the shadows.
Well, the shadows could be quite three-dimensional, but the thing is, when you look at your own shadow all the time, all you're seeing is just what it's like an opposite of projecting.
Okay, so they're deprojecting I just want to, we've got a new face here on Jolty. I just want to fill you in on where we've come from the conversation here. We started off talking about, does Donald Trump have a right to tweet? Who owns this? Who owns the platform? Should there be some kind of due process? Then we started talking about what the limits of freedom of speech. Then we started talking about the cake, the famous cake made in Northern Ireland of Bert and Ernie. And should the cake makers have a right to not make a
cake makers of the world unite?
And then we talked about COVID. What about COVID? Because is that a restriction on our basic freedoms? And that's where we are right now. But Paul's just brought in Plato's cave. Are we kind of chained in the cave right now, where we under lockdown? Is it a bit like being in Plato's cave? I know that's not quite what you're saying, but I noticed that Anissa has got her hand up, so I'm going to come straight to you, and hopefully you'll be able to take us out of the cave.
I was going to point on like COVID, like lots of people have lost their jobs due to COVID, like many young people, like I think that loads of people are like they're on job seekers, a lot of people. Because due to COVID, people losing the jobs. Because I know a friend of mine, like he lost his job. He was working in a restaurant, like hospitality sector, and he lost his job. And he's been working there like 9 years. Like, my God.
So I mean, what do you think the action for those people should be? Are we just forgetting about those people? How do we help those kind of people out that have lost their jobs? I'll tell you what, Anissa, I'm going to throw that out to everyone else in the conversation. We've got some other people joining us. We've got John just joining us now as well. I'm going to come to, I'm going to let you listen in for a second, John, so I've just done a recap. But does anyone else want to pick up on any of these threads? Do you feel like we're living in Plato's cave and we haven't really seen the full kind of vitality of the world? Do we feel that we are living in a free world? Do we feel like our freedoms have been restricted by COVID? Do we feel that there is a sense of freedom? Do people feel free? Maybe that we just go that simple. Katie.
Thank you. It's one of my favorite topics, actually. And I think that many people expect to have freedom of circumstances, to be able to choose the circumstances that they experience. But I think that we never have or could have freedom of circumstances, because circumstances do not depend only on us. It depends on, at the moment, 8 billion other people and a few million other species. So what we have freedom in is what we think about it or how we feel about it. So even if we can't change the reality, we can change how we feel about it. And this is the freedom that nobody can ever take away from us until they can control our thoughts.
Okay, so we've
I think that is the freedom to root our feeling of freedom in.
Yeah, the freedom of mind.
We'll never be able to change everything we want.
Yeah, so we can't change our circumstances, but whatever is in our mind is completely free.
Absolutely.
Do people agree with that? Are our minds a free space?
Very good, very.
You're getting some thumbs up. Margot?
Yeah, about the freedom in the head, in your mind. Yeah, it's true. But I think, you know, having such a scarce access to people during this lockdown and, you know, this past year, a lot of people that I know, and me included, we've kind of been spending a lot of time in our heads, just like keeping ourselves amused, like writing, reading, and that kind of freedom to do everything, it just got too hard.
So there's too much freedom of the mind. Is that what you're saying?
It's like if you kind of restrict yourself just to experiencing the world through the through your mind, the freedom of your mind, then it just gets a bit boring.
Okay, so in a way, we've got freedom of our mind, but that is not necessarily such a great thing. Victoria?
Yes, but I mean, let's not forget that like the ability to change circumstances in which you live is like #1 reason why people emigrate. So you can like, and also in psychology, like, you know, the most thing that I hear is that, you know, if you just are very well in touch with yourself, you are able to change your circumstances, like your life and that sort of thing. That's the whole point. Yeah.
Do you feel free, Victoria?
What kind of, I don't know. It depends what you mean. Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I take responsibilities for my actions in that sense, yes.
Okay, so there's also a point about responsibility that we haven't heard.
Yeah, I mean, the point is like, yeah, you can say, like, I think I feel free in my choices because I take responsibility. Yeah, I guess in that sense.
Okay, I just want to open this out a little bit. I know, Katie, you've got your hand up. We've got some new faces. We're talking about freedom. Della, you've not said much for a while. Jolt and whoever that is to the right of Jolt, you've not said much. Hello. So everyone's welcome to come in on this conversation. Do we actually feel free ourselves? Do we feel free in our minds? Please don't give out personal details like our address and meetings. Thanks. The management.
Please do not share.
Yeah, okay, well, we're not going to do that. Okay, I'm going to come to Victoria. I've just been to you. We're going to come
just one example, a small example. It's like, actually, somebody said something about like Prince Harry and like all the royal family. Actually, it's a good point. Basically, I was watching an interview and the guy said something like, it's the most boring thing you can do. You're born like a prince and you can't choose to be, you know, there's so much you have to do because like the way you're born. It's kind of interesting point, I thought. Yeah, how much do you have to do? Like, you know, could you, maybe he's like not, maybe one of them is like, for instance, into music, or it's like, he would love to be in a rock band or something.
So born into privilege is like being born into intellectual bondage in a way. I'm going to come to Natalie because Natalie, you've got your hand up. I'm going to come to you in a second, Katie, and I'm also going to come to John because you've unmuted yourself. There must be a reason for that. But first of all, Natalie.
Yeah, I'll put this in the chat. I'm kind of dipping in and out, so sorry if this isn't entirely relevant. But
I wouldn't worry, Natalie.
But on freedom, I think we live freer here in the UK than people of other countries. And it's a privilege, but ultimately living in a capitalist society, the freest of those, it seems to me that the freest of those with the most money, to an extent. And this reminds me of a tweet I read from someone who said that they'd been a therapist for a number of years, and therapy is good, but ultimately what people need is money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so does money buy you freedom? That's a question there.
Yeah, they say money doesn't buy us happiness, but it can buy a lot of things which can lead to happiness.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Okay, John, did you want to say something? Welcome, John.
Well, no, I unmuted myself simply because I'm a social animal like everybody else. And if you're a social animal, then you have obligations to the people amongst whom you live. This business about freedom could be tempered, I think, by an understanding where the obligations are and whether they're just a matter of choice. Perhaps they're not. The obligations tend to be rather permanent, except that now we're struggling with freedom. We're deciding that we individually know what those obligations are.
Okay, so the other side of freedom is obligations. Just want to say, everybody on this call, don't feel obliged to unmute yourselves. You're quite good there on mute. Don't worry about unmuting yourself. It's not an obligation, even though John feels that it is to be part of the social current. But there is a wider question about obligations. Does freedom imply obligations as well? And what about that side of things? Katie, I know you had your hand up earlier, so let me come back to you.
I mean, I really like Victoria's points today. So I just wanted to answer that one about freedom of immigration, which is absolutely true because I myself immigrated from Lithuania and came to UK. But again, that freedom is not an absolute freedom. It's limited to the countries that exist and accept immigrants. Like if, for example, someone disagrees with all rules in all the countries, they cannot create a new one because there's simply no place to do it. There's no land left. So like the freedom is limited. Like same way when you go to a coffee shop, your freedom of choice is not only limited to the menu items, but to the available ones at that time and at that part of the day. So again, every time that freedom exists, it has some kind of restrictions, I suppose. Apart from mind, there we are definitely free.
Well, you've got a round of applause from Jojo. So you can't just start up your own country and start up your own set of rules, says Katie. Do people agree with that? Is the freedom is limited to what is available? Danny, did you want to say something?
Oh, freedom is only in your mind. So
yeah,
at the minute we're stuck. We're very limited until freedom is once again upon us. We only can do what we can do.
Yeah.
So,
do you feel free in your mind right now?
Well, don't want to be in my mind at the minute.
Okay.
Circus or another, and you have to pay to get in it.
Okay, right. So
that's fair enough.
Deli, were you about to say something there, Deli?
Yeah, I was gonna say, us as human beings don't adapt to change, and change is very imminent in the current world we're living in. And I think if we don't start to understand change and that change is always necessary in society, then we're not going to go anywhere. We just keep going back and forth.
Yeah.
So I believe strongly that change is very important. And we as human beings, as a human entity, should try to adapt to change in our societies to bring that positive revolution in the world we live in today.
Okay, you're getting a round of applause from a few people there for that comment. And so what about this question of change? It's kind of moved things on a bit because, you know, are we really ready for change? Are we ready to adapt for change? Katie?
I think the question, are we ready for a change, is always the wrong question.
Yeah.
Because when the change comes, no one asks. Same way when asteroid came, that no one asked dinosaurs whether they were ready for the change of climate. So many times in life, since the circumstances do not mostly depend on us, but mostly depend on where we were born into where we are.
Yeah.
So the point of change, and also the evolution says that not the strongest species survive, but most adaptive to change. So I think the incentive to be able to change as quickly as possible is the most effective thing to do when you are uncertain about the future. Then
So
whichever future will be, you will be able to match it.
So it's more of a question of being ready for change than...
Yes, any time, instead of thinking, is it good time for a change?
Okay.
Because if change is needed, the soonest time possible is the best time.
Okay, so now is always the best time to change, is what you're saying. Victoria, you had a point there?
Yeah, I mean, we're like talking about freedom on your mind, etc. And I was thinking, like, it's kind of a question about almost accepting the reality, or like accepting the time and the place where you are. Like, that's, you know, you're here right now. This is like 2021. Like, you're not gonna live on like 3000 or something for 3021.
But what does that mean, Victoria?
The other way, you could say, like, I was basically...
Victoria, what does it mean?
Yeah, I want to make a point. Well, just being present, you know, just that's what I'm saying. Saying that, you know, I don't live in some kind of... Yeah, just really being present and accepting that you're born here and, you know, or not like 200 years ago or like, I don't know, 1,000 years ago. Just accepting that at least and accepting yourself.
or 1,000 years in the future.
But that's not the point I want to make. I want to make a point like, or it could go other way and say like, well, I was basically just watching this podcast, listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan, and he had guest. His name is Paul Stamets, and he's a mycologist. And he said something really cool. He said, I think we need to accept the fact that reality is not limited to the perception that we have traditionally used.
Okay, so there's a question about reality. You can accept reality, but do we really understand our reality? It comes back to Paul's, I guess, Plato's cave analogy. Are we really on top of our reality? It's not about freedom or obligations, but about what we consider our reality to be and how we can best deal with our reality.
Yeah, and you can also go crazy and just start believing in all these different. Maybe there is not just one reality.
Are there different realities out there, or do we have our own shared reality, or do we live in different realities? And I guess it comes back to Donald Trump as well, because he seems to be living in a different reality to everyone else. So, yeah, is there one shared combined reality, or have we all got our own realities? Danny?
Well, we all come from nothing, and we're all going to leave with nothing. It's what we make in the middle that counts, because nothing's never written for us.
Yeah.
So the reality is what we make it.
Okay, so there isn't a point that reality is actually what we make it. It's not a set thing, but a malleable thing. John, do you want to come in here? Not for any other reason that you can help me get out of this philosophical hole. What do you think about reality? Do we have a shared reality? Is it like a fixed thing, or is it something we can actually change?
Well, I think there is a great deal of choice here, because there is a line from a musical, a song in a musical from a long time ago. It was a musical of Oliver.
Yeah.
And the line is, they all suppose what they want to suppose. And to an extent, I think that is true. We can find a bunch of people looking at the same thing, and they all suppose individually what they want to suppose. Whose is the reality? Whose is the right of defining reality? And I think the experience of Donald Trump, whether one supports or does not support any or all of the things that he said while in power, does raise the question of, from what do you derive your notion, your perception of the reality that you share? And then what is the right that you have to try to change other people's perception of the reality that they are sharing with you? Let's leave it there. You're out of your hole.
I just want to come back to you here, John. And what would you like to suppose? If you can suppose what you want to suppose, what would you want to suppose?
I'm far too old to suppose anything, because I've done a lot of supposing in my life. It's got me absolutely nowhere, except onto Talkaoke.
Okay. So a little bit too much supposing for you. Do other people want to suppose what they want to suppose, and what do they want to suppose? Anyone want to suppose anything? I know that's a bit of an abstract question, but I think it's a good one. What would you like to suppose, people? What? Victoria, are you going to suppose something?
Well, I can suppose, I guess the basic answer for me would be just you can just hear your own emotions, and they will always tell you how you feel about what's going on outside of you in regards to you, because everyone has a unique experience. As long as you listen to your emotions.
Yeah. Okay. So you suppose that we should be more in touch with our emotions. I notice on the chat here, Natalie, you've got a supposition. Do you want to bring it into the verbal as well as the textual? Yeah. What you want to suppose? Okay, I'm going to do it for you then, Natalie, which is in the chat. I suppose we could all be living in a simulation. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm here now.
What do you mean by that?
Honestly, I don't know what I mean.
Okay. Maybe someone else can fill us in on that one.
I just know that people say it a lot, and if we were living in a simulation, how are we to know?
Okay, all right. So the simulation, it's excited Katie, that's for sure. But I'm going to come to Anissa as well. What would you like to suppose, Anissa?
I suppose 2021 should be a better year than 2020.
Well, that's definitely a. Okay. Have you got any thoughts on the simulation idea?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, I'm going to come to you in a second, Paul, but I'm on the simulation. I have to come to Katie first because she's busting a gut on it. So I'll come to you in a second, Paul.
Thank you. Well, I read recently that they managed to do an experiment in quantum mechanics, which proves that there is no such thing as objective reality. It was done in MIT University. I'm sending the link in the chat straight away. And there you go. Basically, at the lowest level, at the smallest level, no one can explain any reason why we have this particular reality that we do. Right. We are confident that we share it, definitely, but no one can say whether it's the only one or why it's in this one in particular.
So where do we stand on the simulation idea?
Well, that's the thing. If there is no objective reality, how is it different from a simulation?
Okay, so do we actually...
And also there is the holographic principle, and it has to do with black holes, and way too big topic to explain in a few sentences. But essentially, the third dimension and time in the universe may be just a holographic experience of two dimensions in which the information of the universe is actually stored. That would be the short version.
All right. Okay, so if we're not living in a simulation, we might be living in a hologram. I'm going to come to Danny and Victoria in a second, but Paul was about to chime in on the simulation thing.
Yeah.
I think we need a new sound effect.
Yeah.
Matrix.
Yeah. Matrix sound effect would be good.
Yeah. Simulation is good because that's just made up, isn't it? That's just something that you've taken from somewhere else and made a recording of and made it again. It could be an emulation too.
What's an emulation?
Yeah. Well, what it is, I think I've made it up. I'm not sure. But I think it's about how you can actually just have your own experience anyway. This is like the philosophical brain in a test tube, brain in a jar. That's the one.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're a brain in a jar or not. So how do you know?
That's a jarring thought.
Oh.
But anyway, okay, so are we an emulation in a simulation, says Paul? Are we experiencing a hologram, a three-dimensional time-bound hologram of a flat two-dimensional universe? Danny, I'm not expecting you to answer that question, but you've got your hand raised up, so just say whatever you want to say. It's your freedom of choice.
Well, if we're all the same, or we're all on the same plane, the same reality, how come there's different flavoured beers, different flavoured tastes, different races of people, religions and creeds? So if we're all on the same level playing field, how come there's difference?
So you're drinking Carlsberg and I'm drinking Budvar. Well, no, actually, let's just say for the purposes of this argument, you prefer Carlsberg. And we've got Moretti there. How come people like different versions of the same bland rotten water liquids that they drink as beer? Why have people got different tastes if we're all kind of drones or droids in the same simulation? And yeah, I guess we're just having a real reality conversation. I know that it's a worn out sound effect, but I have to do it again because I sort of feel we're going down that direction. Victoria.
Just gonna in the chat. I was watching a film and it's a screenplay by Charlie Kaufman and directed by Charlie Kaufman. And there's a great line, I thought, that the characters were talking. One of the characters were saying that she thinks it's the time that's passing through us rather than we are passing through time. Whoa. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's like, imagine that It's almost like thinking of us as static, but not the time.
Okay, so is time passing through us rather than us passing through time? Is that one of the sort of errors in that Plato's cave type errors about Katie?
On the topic of the tastes, I will, instead of a direct answer, I will give a thought experiment. Let's say a newborn baby is born with a weird thing that he sees green color as red and red color as green.
Yeah.
However, as he grows out, the color that he perceives, the same way that we do red, he will see as green. But the name that he will learn will be the same that we have learned. So how would it ever be possible to find out if you see the color same way that the other person sees color?
That's a very good question. It might be a good one as well for Laura to visualize on the red screen. Anyways.
I think Anissa's leaving submission.
Okay,
It was the last
let me get a final thought from Anissa. There's a lot of I know I've done it like 10 times in the last 5 minutes, but there's a lot going on. Anissa, what's your final thought before you go?
I think today's session was amazing. I really enjoyed everything you guys talked about. I would really like to come to the next session, definitely.
Oh, is there anything you're going away thinking? Is there anything that's changed your perspective or your view on reality?
Maybe politics. I don't really like know much about politics. Like maybe I'm getting into politics now.
Yeah, sucking you into the political world.
Yeah.
I mean, do you need to know enough about, or know anything about politics to get into politics? I mean, ask Donald Trump. Maybe you don't need to know anything about it to get into it. Anyway, but thank you, and I'm just gonna give you some plaudits and thanks for joining in. And do
thank you, Anissa.
And keep
this
all going. Where do we want to go from here? I noticed Stephen's got his electric moustache on now, which was what started off this whole philosophical discussion about the nature of reality. Where do we want to go with this discussion? We want to talk about our reality, the point about shaping the reality. Do we want to talk about perspective? Do we want to talk about how do we know red is red and green is green? And how do we know that you see something different? It's there's so many things here. There's a couple of hands up. I mean, to be honest, they're the two people that have said the most tonight, which is Katie and Victoria. So I'm going to go to both of them. But this is also, Stephen, I don't think you said anything at all yet, and your moustache has gone wonky.
But it really suits you, I've got to say.
It does work. It does work. And it could possibly be the fashion for 2021.
I've got the lipstick as well, but you can't really see it.
Yeah.
I was heading out the door today and I thought, oh my God, I've still got the moustache and the lipstick. I better go and wipe them off. And I went, no, hang on, they're virtual.
Or maybe
there we go. It's another thing about perception and reality in a way, isn't it? And that seems to be what today's discussion is all about. Victoria, have you got something there?
Yeah. So I recently I was like looking at the Q&A in the Instagram of one filmmaker, and he made quite an interesting point, and I think it kind of ties into with the question of reality. Basically, somebody asked him about his eco habits, and he said, and he just wrote like a quite long post saying that it's just really what it depends on you, and you have to decide for yourself. Because, for example, he was talking about recycling. He said like, okay, well, I think he said he doesn't recycle because, for instance, the trash from the area in London, he lives in Hackney, I believe. He said from his specific area where he lives, it doesn't make sense to recycle because it basically gets sent to Africa and it doesn't get recycled really, if you think about, like, if you check the facts. And the other thing is that for example, so there's no point of doing some certain specific things, small things, just to calm yourself. You have to look at the bigger picture. He said something like, yeah, you have to look at the reality as a whole in terms of, for example, echo habits and stuff like that. But he also made another point is that, you know, in a sense that reality will also be changing. So you need to like take that in account as well, because there are about, he said something like this: there are going to be 2 milliard
billion. 2 billion people that 2 more billion people that will be experiencing they will have middle class experience, and they will want to live in the comfort. They will want to have multiple cars, multiple phones. They will want to like eat inexpensively and fly where they want. So that's also coming, you know, like in the countries like China and India. So that will also happen. So it's like you have to look at things in a bigger kind of perspective. And I thought it was quite interesting because you know it's more about like sometimes you get stuck into this like one little reality that you have of like this bubble where you think you live in a perfectly like you recycle everything, blah 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 blah. But you know, if you open up a little bit, it's not so. Yeah, so I might recycle this can. This is Tower Hamlets, I should say. But if I put this can in the recycling bin, how is that going to affect this global population explosion and demand for consumer goods, flights, cars, steaks globally? It's just, it's a drop in the ocean. So how does our perception of reality affect the global? And do we have an even understanding of what this kind of global perception of reality is?
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, maybe it sounds a bit too big, but I feel like...
Let me come to Katie. Katie, what are you going to say?
I think it's a very, very, very great point. But my main question is, how many people can drive more than one car at once? Because I haven't met any. Yeah. Most of them drive one at once. And I mean, at the moment, people put a lot of value on stating that something is mine, so to speak. Let's say this car is mine and I drive it today, even though I'm not going to drive it tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, and so on. But I mean, here the solution is simply in changing how we look at things. If the point is to drive that particular car, once, let's say, we will have, for example, I know that at least one electric car company is planning to make all of their cars almost work like Ubers while, let's say, you sleep, so they can earn money for you. So it will be your car, but there will be many other people driving it. And other people can use that car to drive to, let's say, a club and say, look in what car I came. And so there is a possibility of that experience. It just comes like in a new reality, I guess it comes with a little bit different flavor, with a different touch. But the experience itself, what you feel, whether you experience it as a big deal or not a big deal, is same as with color. There is no way to define it. It's how you decide it.
Okay, so while you're sleeping, your car is going out night clubbing, basically.
Not well. It's working as a taxi, as automatic taxi. Basically, it earns money for you. So you wake up and you have the money that your car earned during the night, and afterwards it came in the morning at the right time in your garage and plugged itself to charge itself so that you can go.
No one needs to know anything about it.
That reminds me of the film.
Everyone already knows about it. It's supposed to be this year.
Like, I sort of feel like the car's kind of cheating on me if it's busy, got its nightlight.
I mean, we should find out because the launch is supposed to happen this year. So I think we're going to find out before the New Year's.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
No, but there was that. They're going to need one of those little tree things as well to put in on the rear view mirror just to freshen it up after all that time in the club. Anyway, Marco.
Who remembers that film? I can't remember the title of it, where the car is quite anthropomorphic. It kind of is the main protagonist.
Holy Motors.
Herbie.
No, I don't know. No, it wasn't Herbie.
Movies about it.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
No. Well, it's quite a genre, isn't it?
I mean, do you think in the future the cars themselves will be doing their own talkaoke and having the same discussion about you know, about what is reality. And
was a
do they need a rest after going out all night and driving during the day?
It was a sexy car. It was like, you know, the guy
Greek car named
went out of
Knight
it. Yeah,
Rider.
yeah.
Knight
Thank you,
Rider.
thank you. That's the one.
And the car was called Kit.
Right. So that's the film I was referencing.
Was that your point, Joe? Or have you got more to add to that?
No, I was just interested about this reality thing because my wife and I are going to get a dog, and I've been trying to learn a bit about dogs. I don't know too much, but what I figured out is from watching them, they have this incredible sense of smell and incredible hearing, but the other three senses that we share, they don't really mean much. They'll eat anything that, you know, they don't see very well, maybe even see in black and white. No one's kind of quite answered that for me. But yeah, so I just thought that was interesting, like the way animals, their reality. I mean, it's a bit lighthearted, but that's me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because this, in a way, this question about the sense of smell was kind of like treading over ground that we were having in the pre-chat before we started Talkaoke. And what about different perceptions? There was, I don't know if you want to bring in your point, Geraldine, about Joe Biden, what he reportedly said about his fear of getting COVID.
Oh no, that was just my silly friend Baron who had added that he sends me these they call memes a lot. So he had stuck on my fear of COVID. My biggest fear of COVID is the loss of sense of smell of kebab. Yeah, that was all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what about this? But seeing the world, or even not seeing the world, smelling the world from the world of smell. Are we too kind of in a way fixed in our visual frame? And I think that's a very good point from Joel.
Sorry, just one additional thing. I think it's because we've learned the technology to have like telescopes and microscopes, so we can do that, and we've learned the technology to hear like ultrasonic. But I don't think we can do extreme smelling.
Yeah.
We haven't figured that out, so it's hard for us to ever picture how good these dogs are. They can, you know, your owner can walk a mile and the dog can follow the owner's scent, which is not perfume, just like their human scent. They follow this route for a mile. It's bonkers. We can't picture that because it's not a thing.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like we don't actually we're going to this, I guess, without throwing too many things in here. We can extend the medium of vision or of sound, but we can't extend the medium of smell or really get our heads around it at all. It's just what we like this, for example, nut flavored snacks. But that's it. We're very limited.
We can with smart sensors, but we don't actually experience it ourselves, I suppose, in our own brains. We've got equipment that I still don't know if they're as sensitive as dogs, but we've got, you know, scientific equipment that can detect just a few molecules.
I think that by now they're at least 1,000 times more effective than dogs.
But we don't have smell-o-vision, I think is the point.
We can't experience it ourselves.
Yeah.
I just
Danny,
want...
let me come in and then and I come to you.
Okay.
Margaret. Danny?
Yeah. What type of dog is Joel getting?
Okay, what type of dog?
Oh, a black Labrador.
A black Labrador.
A brack. Sounds just like it.
They've been well known for the sense of smell because that's what they were bred for, really. But the best animal in the world with the greatest sense of smell was a rat. They're being trained in Africa at the minute to sniff out landmines.
Right.
And it's got a rat has got I think 1,000 times more different smell perceptors than a dog. So best get a rat instead of a dog if you want to smell it.
That's actually a squirrel sound effect again, but I just thought, you know, that's
just
why
gratuitously
today. All right, so where are we going to go with this? We're going to talk about smell-o-vision. We're going to talk about dogs. We're going to talk about just a different way of understanding the world.
What made you think about getting a dog?
What's that?
What made Joe think about getting a dog? Was it the lockdown or?
No, it's my wife. She's been wanting a dog her whole life, and I kind of said yes a couple of years ago, but we're just training a time window to get it. Nothing to do with lockdown, but it has made getting a dog difficult, I think.
Okay.
Not as many out there.
At the minute, price of dogs have gone through the roof.
Yeah.
So I was looking at getting another dog myself, and I had a St. Bernard many years back, and she was the most expensive dog in London at the time when I bought her. But now I've seen dogs price up to £4,000.
Wow.
And
I never thought we'd be talking about the price of dogs. We went from is there an objective reality to what's the most expensive dog out there, and why has the price of dogs gone up during COVID?
I had no idea, but I would just like to say that my favorite dog is a poodle. So that's the kind of dog I would get if I was to get one. But I'm probably going to get a hamster instead for now. But on the chat earlier on, we were talking. Well, Natalie said that she's arguing with her mum about the color of a towel. There's a towel behind you, but it's not the towel. There's another towel. Because I think with this one, we can fairly agree. What color is it?
Oh, this towel
behind you.
Like that kind of the dress, that controversial dress.
Except this is like more mundane.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why it's really trippy. So is it green or is it blue?
Well,
Jojo says it's green.
I'm worried that the conversation is possibly getting a bit dry. But that could be the towel. I don't know. But where do we want to go with this? Do we want to carry on the dog thing? Do we want to talk about the dog's reality? Do we want to talk about the dog's cost? Is it right that a dog has got a cost? And have people got a cost? Paul?
Hello. Cost and people and dogs. I mean, dogs are like trained wolves, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're sort of like carrots as well. Carrots were blue originally. Now we've got red carrots. So we genetically engineered dogs from wolves. They're great.
Yeah.
So I think they're great company.
Yeah.
And I know an African story about how dogs were created as companions for men because they were crap hunters. But that's another story. And I think I think having dogs around is great.
Okay.
We should always have some. It's an understanding that another creature is in the room.
Okay, and they've got a different perspective. It might be hard to actually find out what that perspective is.
You'll never know.
They've got a different perspective.
But it's your friend.
Yeah. Okay. Let me come to Victoria and then Katie.
I mean, it's just want to make a small point about how, in general, I feel like it's almost the question of how we measure intelligence, because a lot of animals can do things that people can't, and yet people, it's just. I was just listening, I guess, too much to the Paul Stamets, this mycologist, and he was like obsessing over mushrooms.
Right.
How intelligent they are, and there are lots of things you can do with mushrooms. You can make leather-like material. You can make drugs that will heal you. You can eat them. You can, you can create medicine for bees.
Have mushrooms got a perspective?
And, mushrooms create this mycelium that's supposed to be like internet of nature. So it's a crazy. It's just he kept bringing this point about intelligence. How people a lot of times don't think something of nature is not intelligent. And I thought it's kind of.
So a mushroom can be intelligent.
Yeah, that's the question. But I think there are people that believe that. Maybe if just because we can't measure it, there's it's a different type. So it's not a different. It's a different kind of intelligence, maybe than human intelligence. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, so
the biggest mushroom is huge.
I feel like Danny wants to come in at this point. I'm standing by on the sound effect pad. Go on.
Pet.
Well, I say the mushrooms are fun guys to be around, didn't they?
Okay, we think that that we're free, but is there mushroom in our head to consider fungal intelligence? That's what we're talking about here. Let me just what do we think? Can a mushroom have a perspective on the world? We talked about a dog, but what about a mushroom? And what?
Yeah, it's this word intelligence. It's difficult, isn't it? Because maybe a better word would be ability. Because as soon as we talk about intelligence, we think about intellectual intelligence. Whereas plants do seem to be able to sense things and respond to things and
yeah,
behave in a way that benefits their own survival in quite cunning ways. Interact with other species, in cooperative ways, and they seem to be. Well, people will use the word conscious. That's the other word, isn't it? It's difficult. Conscious. And how do you define consciousness? How do you know anyone else is conscious?
How would we be able to know if a mushroom was conscious?
Indeed.
Different times.
How would you know?
Time frames, different time frames.
Well, you have to explain that a bit more, Paul.
Okay. So it's frames of reference. So we see reality about 25 frames a second, if I remember rightly. That's what the original sort of cinema thing was. 25 frames a second to make lots of static images moving. I could be wrong. I know it's modern and it's faster now, but it's about like your frames of reference. About senses, if your smell works on a different way because it's bound by a different set of principles, isn't it? How long does a smell reach you? I mean, it's like me farting, and then you're in the room, and then you're unhappy with me because I didn't tell you, but I could have told you before you smelled it.
Okay, you're based in South London there, so it would have to be a really strong one to come over the river there.
Very true.
But it's still, in a way, that is closer to mushroom communication, isn't it? This kind of passing the diffusion of chemicals. So do mushrooms, how would we ever be able to know if a mushroom had some kind of consciousness? Danny?
Well, if you eat one and go on a good trip, you know you've had a good one with a good conscience.
Okay, so is it about eating the mushroom? But in a way, would we want to have our consciousness proved by being consumed?
Elevated. Believe me, I've tried some mushrooms.
Yeah.
Well,
what happened?
It was a good 6 hours, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. What happened in those 6 hours? What happened in those 6 hours?
Well, mainly it was just all colours. It was just.
Yeah.
I was laughing most of the time.
Right.
It was a surreal experience. It's like I was not in my body, even though I'm big and fat. I was weightless. Like.
Right.
I was nothing. I was well, if I had another pack again, I would definitely go there. It's a surreal experience. That's what I can't. Yeah, them sort of colours come up, and
yeah. Okay.
You could see noise.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Amsterdam for you, but.
Katie, you've got a point there.
I've written so many points. By the way, just on the last one on the mushrooms, synesthesia is very common effect of hallucinogens because
what is synesthesia?
Synesthesia is when you perceive a certain sense as a different sense. So, for example, you hear colors, you see sounds, or feel smells with your skin or stuff like that. Essentially, when your neuron connections in your brain, which experience these senses, get connections in between, which may happen when you are affected on hallucinogens, you experience it gets kind of mixed up. So you can get all of those experiences.
I had that once. I had that once. I don't get it often, but I was eating some salad. I was munching some salad, and I was a bit stoned. I'd been, and I was listening to music, and the experience of eating the salad became one with the music.
Right.
All the different flavors you know, rotating in my mouth were just the same as the sounds I was listening to. And because you've got taste buds on either side of your mouth, it became stereo.
Right.
I was aware that my taste was stereo and like the music. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So,
and just as a topic in the background for the smells, I have been thinking a ton about the consciousness and the topic of intelligence, and I have come up with an idea, and I would really love to hear thoughts about it. Could the perspective from which we can think reflect, at least in some way, the level of intelligence? Can we somehow try to tie it up? Because the reason why I thought that is that the perspective from which we think defines our values and thus how we make any choices. So if we think that, if we look from my personal perspective, my feelings is the most important thing, my choices will reflect that. If I look from perspective of society on another subject, then my thoughts will be different, my values will be different, my choices will be different. So I think that the reason why we never could have put the finger on what is intelligence is because, first of all, we kind of mix it depending on what circumstances, which perspective we use to make the choice. That's why sometimes we say that, you know, I'm a smart person, but I made a stupid choice.
So, I mean, what are you saying? What is the question that you're putting out to other people?
So the question is, could perspective from which we derive our values in some way indicates the level of intelligence? So then even in the species, if they understand, you know, just react to the environment, that means they experience only aware of their own experience, and that's it. Then if some other animals can, let's say, hunt in groups, then they see a little bit larger perspective, so
Right.
higher intelligence. And then we can think, you know, what is our meaning of life in the sense of the whole universe? So we could say that, okay, so that is another level of intelligence.
So you're
could we tie it up to that? Like, I need an outside opinion about it.
So the wider the perspective, the greater the intelligence.
Yes, because the more you can things you can consider, the more relationships you can perceive.
Okay, I just want to bring Geraldine on this, because I saw you shaking your head.
No, I think it's an unfair experiment. I don't think you can tell the intelligence by the means of a person or an organism's perspective.
But for example,
and that's that. Good night.
But I think like mathematics, it's more like a skill than, let's say, intelligence. Like many of things are skills. This is not skill per se, I believe.
Is it
Maybe
a
I'm
fair
wrong.
comparison? I'm going to bring in John, and I'm going for people that have said less first. So let me bring in John. I can see other hands are up, and I feel like I should bring in George, because George has said absolutely nothing all night. But not yet. I'm bringing in John first. John. Or maybe that would,
I'll do it. Yes, I'm very interested to hear what Katie and others have to say about the relationship between intelligence and all the other senses and what they do. But I'm reminded that there was a thinker, a philosopher in the 17th century. His name was Spinoza, and he's very much a favorite man of mine, but he wasn't very popular in his day. Now, what he said was, or he defined layers of our processing, and his top layer would correspond to what we now call intelligence, but his deepest layer was a sense that we could feel is corresponding to feelings very deeply. And his analysis there was that with regard to morality, that is what is good, what is right, as against what is bad or what is wrong, that the deeper sense of feelings was far and away more reliable than the intelligent processes at the highest level. I think there's something in relation to all that discussion about the senses that we have. what we tend to overlook is that these are not, as we sometimes intelligently analyze them to be, they're not simply physiological spokes in the bicycle wheel that makes up ourselves, but they are associative experiences, and they are processed by that associative part of our being, which has been suppressed by the supremacy of intellect or intelligence, and of course driven by money. So the fact is, if I can get to the end of this little bit, then I'll shut up for a while, long while if you like. But the fact is that all these senses of color, of taste, of smell, these senses being associative throughout the animal kingdom indicate life or death changes, decisions to those that experience them. When we are concerned, we take one sense and define it as good or bad, likable, not likable. Animals don't do that. They just decide, can they tolerate it? Is it good for them? Is it something that threatens them? We've lost our touch with that. So we've put intellect, intelligence at the highest level of our priorities, and we give it the highest score in terms of what is a good or a not good human being. Unfortunately, this does not automatically carry with it, please read Spinoza on the subject, it doesn't automatically carry with it that deeper sense of moral good or moral bad. So we are not getting it right, and we're giving supremacy to something that doesn't carry with it what is ultimately of the most importance to human beings and to the society in which they live.
So
I'll
thank
shut
you,
up
John.
now for a good long
We'll
while.
give you a round of applause. To be honest, you've saved us from having to read Spinoza. This is like a double bonus. But I'm going to sum this up in saying that, you know, intellect is not necessarily the highest caliber of a human being, the highest thing. And what about that sense of, you know, that sense of right or wrong, that sense of value, that sense of feeling? Isn't that at the prime most important thing about human beings? Katie, you want to?
Yeah, I agree. It's a slightly can I come in there?
Yeah, sure.
A slightly fanciful idea because you can never prove it. But instead of talking about intelligence, talk about abilities, and intelligence is only one of those abilities. I mean, abilities at many different levels.
Can you give us some examples of other abilities?
Oh, well, you put me on the spot now, but I mean, the ability to have a good time, the ability to dance, the ability to all these different, you know, different kinds of ability apart from intellectual ability, and ones that we don't even know about yet. If you were able to measure all of them, there's no saying that we would not all come out with equal scores. You can't prove it. You can't prove it one way or the other, but it's a good attitude to carry around with you, because you're not feeling superior or inferior to anybody or anything else.
Okay, so are we judging people on a very you're getting a round of applause there from Geraldine. I did say, I also feel like, you know, Jojo's not said anything for ages. Natalie, you've not said much for a while, though you've been very busy on the chat. Deli, you've not said that much. And Joel's gone off to look for his dog. Oh, no, he's still there. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, this is all about all of us. Oh, I mean, the question right now is, are we really, in a way, judging people in the right way? Katie, come in on this one.
Thanks for the responses, but again, I slightly feel I was a little misunderstood. So what my point is that I wasn't talking about just, you know, simply thinking about different things or different thoughts and ability of doing that. My point was, let's say, can I understand not only how I feel, but how other people who surround me feel? So independently of what it is about, even if it's all about feelings, do I perceive only my own feelings, or can I imagine others' feelings as well? So I would presume that ability to imagine more than my own feelings requires more processing power, thus better. But again, and that's why I put it on the perspective, not on, let's say,
Right.
math or any kind of ability or dance moves or anything like that. It's like, even when you're dancing, you know, a person can be a great personal dancer and a person can dance and be aware of what's around him. It's kind of a level of awareness, in a way, of how wide perspective one is aware.
And we
probably is the better way of putting it.
We've all seen that on the dance floor as well. You know, dancing, I think, is an interesting one. Thank you for bringing that, you know, that area of life, because on the dance floor, it's not just about how many moves you can do, but how you're responding to other people on the dance floor as well, in my experience. Okay, where are we going to go with this? We've got Danny, let me come to you, and I'll come to you, Paul.
Me? Marky, I'm off. I've got a show. Shoot.
Give us a final thought before you go.
Well, all of us are our own true friends. If we keep ourselves well, we can keep our friends well. So, and we're our only good enemy, really. We're good and bad in all of us. We're in our reality. Go get your dogs, your mushrooms, and do what you want to do.
Okay, so next dog you're going to get, Danny's obviously one that can sniff out the mushrooms. And we'll leave it there. You can hear the dog going off, kicking off there. So thank you, Danny. Where are we going to go with this conversation? Paul, thank you, Danny. I'll give you another round of applause.
Good night. Good night.
Nice, lovely to see you as well.
Bye, Danny.
Yeah, thanks. See ya. Bye.
See ya. Paul, what were you going to say? You got to unmute yourself there.
Yeah, I did. All right. I'm with you now. I was just putting into the chat about cooking and intellect, just to add to this consciousness thing going on. Because it's a really interesting thing that they found with Anthropolycus, and I can never say his name, some missing link. Anyway, so what it is, just nearby, there's another group of missing links, and they've got scorch marks on bones. They've been cooking. And it so happens that cooking gets the energy out of meat a lot easier. Better than spending, like our primate brothers in the trees, chewing all day. They don't chew all day. You don't spend your time chewing. You're actually in checking out for predators. You can go and eat something and sustain yourself a lot easier. So this is the theory behind development of your frontal cortex, where we do a lot of the decision making. That interesting.
Yeah, so what are you saying though, that cooking, it's all about cooking.
So
cooking improves mind.
It
on
could
an
be.
evolutionary timescale, cooking improves mind.
It's just changed when we invented cooking.
Yeah, okay, things changed when we invented cooking. I've got no cooking sound effects there to
sizzling.
No sizzling or stewing or simmering sound effects. But everyone can fill that in with their own imaginations. So what's cooking in the chat? We're kind of into the last half hour of this. So I feel like we've come a long way, actually, to be honest. It's
been quite a journey.
All the way from Donald Trump through to what is the nature of reality, through to what makes a decent human being, and is it their ability to cook? Anyway, so that's where we are right now. Where are we going to go with this? We're into the final stretch. Dele, have you got a point?
Yes, I just want to share something with you guys. What I observed about myself was when my mind was in a good place, when my mind wasn't deranged, I had a different level of intelligence. When I had a mental health diagnosis, my emotional intelligence and intellectual sort of twice the way it was before I went mad. And my emotional intelligence is much stronger, much wider, much broader than what it was before I went mad. And I just wanted to share that with everyone and see where they fit into the puzzle, and how intelligence and emotional experience and soul and body and mind works together.
Okay, I mean, I'm just going to do, what I'm going to do, Dele, is we've got this technique from Talkaoke called turn the mirror. I mean, from your perspective, what do you feel like that, you know, talking about what we were talking about before, about what's important about a human being in terms of feelings, empathy, intelligence, does this give you some sort of insight into that?
It just give one an incentive into how the mind and body works, and how a mind that is stable works differently from a mind that is unstable or deranged.
Yeah.
Because it's different kind of world we live, different kind of worlds we live in on both spectrums, you know. So
yeah. I mean, does the unstable mind give you any kind of perspective, or does it give you a valuable perspective that informs the stable mind?
I think it just puts me in my own world, and in
Yeah.
the world of madness around me, and it's what I understand most now, and it's
Yeah.
what I'm living with, and it's what I'm going to live with for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So and it keeps developing, and every time I sit down and think of something, I think of it to the extreme and then bring it back and narrow it down again. So it sort of works in all those kind of avenues and spectrums of emotional intelligence and intelligence, and the body and mind and soul.
Okay, so how do the body and mind and soul fit together?
Yeah.
Does it matter where the mind is at? Delhi says yes. An unstable mind has a totally different perception experience of the world. Victoria, is there a point from you there?
Maybe you could make a point that mind always wants, well, according to some of my sources, mind always wants to develop and grow. Like, it doesn't matter what. In that, you could see that an example with people that went through Second World War, and then like there were people that were getting like some therapy from Germany that suffered from Second World War, and yeah, their mind was still growing. Their psychic was still developing. They, for example, realized what happened to them better. They let it go and that sort of thing, and so it always wants to develop. Even it doesn't matter what age you are.
Okay, so the mind always wants to grow, no matter what you throw at the mind. Its instinct is always to grow. I just want to come to George, because you said hardly anything so far, George, and I would like to bring you in. Whoa. I don't know if that, maybe there's a reason for that. Is that us?
I think that's us.
Well, yeah, it might be. George.
Hello.
I don't know what you did there.
Just don't destroy it this time.
George. Talk to us.
Yeah. All right. Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's strange. Yeah.
Any thoughts on today's? Because you've been there listening the whole time.
No, I haven't. I had to go and have dinner, and then I'm back. So you know, I got completely sideswiped and overwhelmed by Spinoza. So I'm going to become an internet doctor on Spinoza over the next few days.
What?
Dr. Spinoza.
Dr. Spinoza.
Spinoza doctor.
Well, yeah, no, like an internet expert, like an internet
you're
lawyer.
Going to start Googling now, but that hasn't happened yet. You haven't started the Googling process.
Well, I've got Wikipedia up already,
okay.
and the Stanford Institute of Philosophy. So that's
there.
Okay.
Can I ask Delhi a question?
Yeah.
In relation to what he brought up, Delhi, were you brought up religious?
Well, I grew up in a religious family, even though I didn't believe in religion. But yeah, I grew up in a
religion. So did I. I like religion. I'm not against it. They say there are theories that maybe provokes mental disturbances because you're in a practice of talking to a non-existent being.
To be honest, I wouldn't know what to say about that. What I know about is that I was quite rebellious whilst I was growing up, and in the society I grew up in, mental health is seen as a taboo. Like you're an outcast, you don't belong to the normal society, and those were the areas I sort of picked upon and worked upon to develop myself. And I just cut out religion completely out of my life, because I didn't have a strong connection with religion, even though I grew up in a very religious family. I held on to my own personal feelings and my own views about the world I live in, and the world I want to live in, and the world beyond me.
Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting point, though, about religion. It comes back to that question about reality. and it immediately led to a raised hand by Natalie. But Natalie, before you come in, it looks like Joel is leaving us, so we're going to just hold this in the air for a second, and let's just get a final thought from Joel before he goes. Thanks for joining us today, Joel. What's your final thought?
Yeah, just that there's some really amazing views, and it's just brilliant to kind of get together, isn't it? I do love Talkaoke, and it works very well online. But yeah, no, that's it really. Just that there's so many different viewpoints, but it's fascinating, the world.
Has today's discussion affected your choice of dog?
No, I mean, honestly, I'm just totally driven by my partner. She is so set on this dog. I'm just trying to learn about dogs before it arrives, because I thought she was getting about a year ago. So I've been kind of like prime ready.
Right, okay.
And I keep telling people getting a dog, and people are like, where's this dog you've been talking about? So no, I thought it was very interesting what Danny had to say. But I won't. I mean, having the most. Did he mean the most expensive, or did he mean the most expensive breed?
The most expensive breed. I don't know if it was
right.
Okay. The literally most expensive St. Bernard. I think it was just the St. Bernard at the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to bring the conversation back to that, so I'll let you all go. But enjoy your last half an hour, and see you next time.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Mikey. Thanks, Margot.
See you later. Thanks, Joe.
We'll see you later. Let's go straight to Natalie. Natalie, what's your point? Because I saw that hand come up very quickly when we were talking about religion and hearing voices and reality.
Yeah. The question that Geraldine put forward was very interesting. I do know that if you look in any sort of like manual for like diagnosing mental disorders, it does state that for like delusions and hallucinations, that these cannot be caused by belief in religion, basically, in something that is shared. So religion seems to be an exception in that. But it's also interesting. I was watching a video the other day, and there was this woman who said that she was very religious, went to church, a very sort of expressive church, and she believed that God had given her special powers to read people's minds, I think it was. And she was so sure on this until one day she woke up and she felt that God was telling her, stop, I haven't given you any power. Like, you can't tell what people are thinking. And yeah, I just think those are two very interesting things. I think the sort of manual, the general consensus is that religion is an exception. It's not delusion because it's shared. And I suppose it has purpose, but then there's that woman who it seems like was sort of influenced by religion to develop delusions.
That's a very interesting point about religion and delusions and what we consider our realities. A lot of people want to say something. I just want to bring in Victoria at this point. I know Geraldine, you want to say something as well.
I'm just gonna make a U-turn on mushrooms again, because
the
same guy I was talking about before, Paul Stamets, he was like, oh, and there might be connection. Basically, there's like a theory or a kind of idea that mushrooms might have influenced religion or the idea of religion, because people, magic mushrooms, they get these really crazy visuals. So
we heard what happened to Danny when he went to Amsterdam. So was that a similar thing? Bible. Was it a similar thing?
Well, I mean, they found these statues of mushrooms in like Mexico that are like thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. So.
Okay.
The point I think was it Natalie was making there was that religion is a shared experience.
Yeah.
Say mushrooms, you're having an individual experience, but her argument was that religion is not delusion because it's shared. I would counter that and say, well, okay, all those followers of Trump, then there were thousands, millions, but are they not deluded? They were sharing an experience, weren't they? But
yeah, personally, I don't know. Personally, I don't know if it's not delusion. I don't know where I stand on that. But that's just something that, if you look at actual, I think it's a DSM-5, which they use to diagnose mental disorders. It's like a sort of a subtext that religion doesn't count. So who decided that? I don't know, but it's interesting.
Okay, so there's a book called DSM-5 that decides whether people are crazy or not, and whether they're deluded. Paul, you've got a point there.
Hello. Yeah. Okay. So the DSM-5, yes, this is a valid point. It's well made too. I think that it's also worth mentioning about sound, because you talk about the realm of the senses, you know. I've forgotten where I was going. Oh yes, we're talking about a shared experiences. So I understand that people in choirs and people who sing together have a shared physiological sensibility. They actually feel that they've shared in something between them. They've maybe created a harmony or a sense of feeling in a space, and they have actually physically shared something. So this is why people get together in churches to share that. It's a sense of
this kind of spiritual thing.
Well, now you see, when people talk about spirit with me, I talk about human spirit as a sense of survival with one another. So spiritual things, yes.
Okay. So we're talking about the choir now, and that, you know, in a way it's all about hearing voices, and there's a kind of combined voice.
Yeah. Well, it's physiological aspect as well. You actually feel you're together with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do we want to go with that? I mean, it's kind of Natalie, back to you. Yep.
Yeah, I wrote it in the chat, but just to add to what Stephen said about Trump supporters, it makes me think of the whole mob mentality phenomenon, whereby I suppose it's just the fact that we are influenced by each other, and shared psychotic disorder is a real thing.
Yeah.
Also
so
known as
have a shared
disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who's to say whether this shared experience makes it valid? You know. Yeah.
Can you give us an example of a shared psychosis?
I don't know. Not really.
Terror.
You get something called mass hysteria with cults and things like that, and another mass hysteria. Is it the same thing you're talking about, Natalie? Mass hysteria.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So we're talking about shared psychosis, shared delusions.
First, maybe it could be the shared, like, you know, whatever each person is experiencing individually. I think when you're in a crowd, it just enhances that emotion. So you can feel like everyone will experience like everyone will have their own background and their own feelings. But I feel like when you're in a crowd, definitely just it goes from like being 5 to, like, if we're talking about the scale 1 to 10, if on average you feel emotional like 5, 6, when you're in a crowd and something happens, you might feel, you know, it might go up to 9, so you just feel it's very intensified.
Okay, so Katie.
I just thought of an example. When we watch, let's say, sport or like a match, watching it alone, even if it's your favorite team, will not be as satisfying, as emotional, as strong as watching it together with a crowd. However, if that crowd's emotion doesn't match yours, it's not going to help. Like if the crowd matches that emotion, matches that feeling, it definitely amplifies it. But crowd alone is not enough.
Absolutely. So shared experiences are definitely something when it comes to, and you know, they can be extreme. I've been there in the crowd. It can be extreme experiences, can't they? Geraldine, what was your point?
I didn't have one actually, but I was saying goodbye to Paul Clayton. He had written "I'm going," so I was waving goodbye.
Oh,
there was also a.
Can I just say, sorry to interrupt?
No.
Paul and George have left without giving their final thoughts, and they are both
Bad.
very experienced Talkaoke participants. They know that's just not the way it goes. It's not the way it happens. So I'm very disappointed. And I've noticed that Victoria's saying she's going to go. I want to get a final thought from you. I know, Victoria, you're not going to pull the same fast one on us.
I'm not going to unplug.
Give us a final thought. I mean, you, in a way, kick this all up with Trump's right to tweet or not to tweet. To tweet or not to tweet, that is the question. But what's your final take on it? We've gone on a long journey since then. What's your final take here?
To be honest, no particular ideas. Just I just feel like in general, there's like a lot of the more conscious we are of our. I'm just gonna say again about emotions because it's quite important for me. Mm-hmm. The more conscious we are of our emotions, what's happening to us in a particular moment, and the more in control we are. And I feel like, maybe this past year, maybe we have like a lot of people, I think, experience exaggerated emotions, maybe because very strong feelings of fear, anxiety, and stuff like that. Well, I did at least, and so I feel like. I just hope that people will be able to manage emotions better, and therefore, I feel.
What does it mean to be in control of your emotions? Does that mean suppressing them? Does it mean just like sucking them up?
It just comes down to self-awareness, I think. Yeah, I feel like basically my final thoughts is just about self-awareness, and I feel like the more self-aware people are, the better. The more self-aware society is as a general, and it's a good thing.
Okay.
Because if you're not like aware of your emotions, for instance, you're feeling angry, or for example, you've been told you shouldn't express your anger, and then when you feel angry, you just suppress it, and then it just goes out in a really negative and affects other people. So, like if when you're feeling angry, like okay, you realize it, okay, I'm just feeling angry. I'm just going to try to go and express it in a non-violent way. So it's really good to be self-aware of your emotions, and I just would love that to be more
prevalent,
more common, And I feel like society is moving towards that slowly. Different societies in different parts. It's just it's amazing when that happens.
Well, Victoria, thanks for joining us.
Nothing in particular, just. Thank you, guys.
Wrong thing. Great final thought. Meant to do this one, not the game over sound effects. We can get it wrong, but thanks for joining us. I sort of feel like we're in the final leg anyway, so maybe it's just time to harvest those final thoughts from everyone, because I feel like some of them are going to be quite long.
Can we do an experiment for a minute and see to experiment of what free speech is if everyone is unmuted? What is free speech in this very moment on Zoom?
Well, Geraldine, we've only got 7 people effectively on here now. 8.
And they're all very polite.
They're all very polite. We should have done the experiment when we're at the peak. But I think at this point, everyone could easily unmute themselves. Would that be your experiment in free speech? Would you go further?
No, that is the experiment in free speech right there.
Everyone is unmuted now, apart from Stephen and Natalie. Where do we want to? Let's just get some. I feel like this is kind of coming to its end. I don't know. We've gone. I feel it's been a bit like a trip, really, that we've all taken a kind of intellectual mushroom rather than sort of like perceptual mushroom. Let's say.
I'm feeling spongy.
Yeah, but Katie, is this a final thought, or is it just one to throw in there before your final thought?
No, I think this will be my final thoughts. I usually keep my final thought to the end, so it's a valid question. But this time I think it will be a final thought. I mean, you just said that it was like an intellectual trip, like a journey. So essentially, we feel it was intellectual because we became aware of new things, of new ideas. So I found out from my experiment today that talking about intelligence is still as taboo topic as UFOs were a couple of years ago, but maybe
Why do you think
it just needs to be rebranded to probably awareness, just like UFOs got rebranded to UAPs to make people more comfortable with it, even though it's exactly the same thing. But like higher awareness sounds maybe better for a lot of people.
Why is intelligence a taboo subject?
Well, I found that people get a very emotional response because, again, this is just my pure guess and speculation. My guess is that for some reason, everyone wants to assume everyone's equal in their various abilities when we every day experience that we are not. I cannot be a very great swimmer and someone can't be a very great singer. Me neither, by the way. But
that's lucky because there's no singing on Talkaoke.
Yeah, but that's why I feel that if all of the society would better understand what evolution of civilization is, it would be much easier to find a common ground, common cause, common values, and common purpose and direction. Because at the moment, we seem to want the same things, but we want them to get them in a very different ways.
Okay, so is it...
So because some people are more aware of certain things and other people more aware of other things. So getting all of our awareness wider so that it always encompasses all of us, I think would be a great thing for the future, and I'll keep hoping for that. Thank you to everyone.
Okay, so let's swap intelligence, swap awareness for intelligence, and maybe that will open up the discussion.
Not only self-awareness, like self-awareness is awareness about myself, but once I'm aware of myself, the next step is to become aware of you. Not only how I feel, but how I make you feel, and then how we make others feel. And how will our history make people feel a few hundred years from now?
Okay, well, hopefully they'll be able to look at this recording and what they'll make of it. I don't know. Natalie, have you got a final thought?
A bit of a response to Katie as well. Is the question not, do we all have the same abilities, but do we all have the same potential?
I think potential for awareness for everyone is the same. Everyone can become aware of everything. However, due to different perspectives of what kind of awareness is more important, if awareness of self is more important, and I'm not saying that one is more important than the other. I'm just saying that each one serves a very different purpose. And since we disagree on the first, we disagree on the purposes as well.
Okay, are we all human beings with the same potential? That's the question. Or
depends on.
Are we allowed to have the same potential?
I don't believe that everyone can become a great painter in the same exact style. So again, it's about definition. However, the reason why I try to, at least so far, no one has persuaded me to think otherwise, and I really hope someone will, because I will learn a lot. But being aware of more things is definitely something everyone can do. And I think as we go through life, when we are born, we're just aware of ourselves, of just what I feel, what I experience, and so on. Then as we grow, we realize that there are more people around me, and we become aware of others too. So just like in our life, the journey goes, if we become aware of more things, more concepts, more realities, more perspectives, I think that it's a thing everyone can achieve, and I hope everyone goes towards.
And let's not forget the mushrooms perspective either.
It definitely increases it.
Okay, so let's get some final thoughts. Anyone want to offer or proffer a final thought? Dele?
Yeah, my final thought would be on the basis of reality. My reality are my dreams, hopes, aspiration, and peace that I want in life. My reality is to fight the revolution in my head and share my world and stories with the world. My reality is coming back to next Talkaoke and having a good chat with all the beautiful people that comes on to the project.
Cool. That's a great final thought. We'll give you another round of
applause. Thanks,
Dele. Okay, we're harvesting final thoughts at the moment. Geraldine, John, Stephen, Natalie, I think we didn't. That wasn't really a final thought. So maybe we either like more of a thorough final thought from you as well, Natalie. Anyone want to give one? Stephen?
Yeah, it's partly in response to Katie. I hope Katie wasn't misunderstanding what I was saying. Well, I'll just make it clear anyway. I wasn't saying that we're all potentially equal swimmers or potentially equal quantum scientists. I'm saying that if we added up the scores of all our different abilities, would all come out, possibly all come out with the same score, although with
depending on our mathematical
very different profile. That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
And if you're going to sort of grade the importance of all these different levels of ability, I can see Katie's argument is that maybe the prime one is just, sort of meta awareness, that is like the ultimate measure. Is it though? I don't know. I mean, a microbe, you couldn't expect it to have the same kind of meta awareness as we do. But it's very good, extremely good at doing some very, very specific things that we could never do. So it's very hard to rank all these different abilities.
Okay, so I mean, do we then say that everyone has got the equal potential? Is that what you're saying, or that we just judge everyone as a human being as just the factor of one? Is that what you're saying?
It's hard to distinguish between ability and potential. They're almost synonymous, aren't they? And as to whether we actually fulfill our abilities or potential, that's a different thing. But what I'm saying is that if hypothetically we were able to quantify all these different potentials and abilities and all abilities we had, who's to say that we wouldn't come out with the same scores?
Okay, so
even the humblest of life forms that are capable of the most incredible things, and who's to say which is more important? I mean, we've got our gut microbes, and we've only just recently discovered that, and we've all got totally different individual profiles of gut microbes that we carry with us, that partly make up our personalities.
Yeah, are those microbes having that same conversation that we are now in all of our bellies? John, have you got a final thought for us?
Yes, I have. I'd like to make two quick points, if I may.
Of course.
I was intrigued and delighted to hear what Katie said, because it seemed to me in the last thing she said, she provides an explanation and a justification for the whole of the world of art. The reason why it seems that we have art perhaps is summed up by the line that belongs to an organization I know of, in fact in Bengal, which says that art gives dignity to life. And I very much like that, because to find any other utilitarian kind of function for art is difficult. But it certainly does give dignity to life. And in Katie's own way, she said that finding out how others think and feel, and that is at that deeper level that I referred to earlier, you do it through the arts. That will show you what people think. If they think in a trivial way, fine, you can enjoy it and that's fun. But you can also read novels, see films, hear music, see dance that digs to the deeper levels of human agony and ecstasy in ways that, of course, we cannot approach otherwise. The last bit I'd like to add in is, a few years ago, I had some community money to spend, and I thought I could spend it usefully to try to discover whether anybody had studied the topic of whether anxiety and depression was a communicable disorder, if it is a disorder at all. I expected the answer to be no, nobody studied it, and there wasn't any correlation. There weren't any differences between one community and another that couldn't be explained by shortage of money or food or not winning a war or something of that nature. Well, I got a researcher to do it because I wanted to be objective about the result. And lo and behold, the result was that some people have studied communication of psychological disorders with quite emphatic results. I was surprised, but not disturbed by this. I pass it on because if now people are interested in the subject of transferable psychoses, that's not a bad place to start. So thank you, Katie. Thank the rest of you. That's it from me.
Hang on a sec, John. Is it contagious or is it not contagious?
Well, contagious, the word contagious is by contact. Now, is there contact between people individually within a community when we're talking about psychology? I think that's another session, Mikey.
Yeah. As we say,
altogether, another session. Do you touch other people by the way that you speak or read or listen? I would probably argue, yes, you do. Because many times we can say to ourselves or to others, what you say touches me, it reaches me, it changes my way of thinking, it reaches my heart. I respond like that. So I would probably be answering yes. Therefore, that's contact. Therefore, yes, contagious. If others all around you or in your family are anxious and depressed, it does seem a studied conclusion that you are very likely to end up anxious and depressed yourself.
Great one. I'm going to hit you with another round of applause there, John. Great final thought.
Well, I'd love to think that people will now, with the benefit of time to do it, even if it's only just 4 years, before it all comes back, using that technology, using that as a tool, have a think back on how Trump and others who use modern communications and social media actually get across what they get across. It could be quite fruitful for our own comfort.
Okay, that's great. As an extra final thought on top of what he's already given us is great stuff, John. Getting a round of applause. Icons coming up all over the screen. Geraldine, you haven't given us a final thought. Natalie, you've given us half a final thought, I feel. So, Geraldine, you go first. Final thought?
I've got nothing, and nothing is sacred.
Okay, well, we're going to give you all sorts of plaudits for that final thought. Natalie, have you got a final thought for us?
Final thoughts. I too am going to go and search Spinoza and get to know him better. That was very interesting, that little interlude. I should come to Talkaoke more often. Thank you, Margot, for inviting me. I'm always... I don't think it's reluctance to come to Talkaoke. It's just reluctance to... I don't know. It's me, not you. But whenever I come, I enjoy it. So yeah, I need to do that more.
It's a bit like going out for a run, though, isn't it? Sometimes, you know, you just think, oh, I should do this, but then just stepping out the door, putting your trainers on.
Yeah.
Story, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm just like, oh, I could do something mindless and watch some YouTube videos, but this is much more fruitful and fulfilling. So yeah.
Final thought, Margot?
Well, no, I think it's yeah. I learn an awful lot when I come to Talkaokes, and I think Natalie, you've brought in so many interesting points. So I'm glad that you made it. But I think I don't know if I have a final thought. I don't have a final thought. I really enjoyed it today, and I'm gonna start reading the Spinoza book, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think my final thought might come at the beginning of our next Talkaoke session. Once I've absorbed all the comments that people have made, it's been really interesting. It's been a great session, actually.
Yeah.
I'm really, really happy, and yeah, as it takes time just to absorb all those things. So I'm just going to give everybody a round of applause. Thanks to Rick and Laura on the visualizations, and it's probably time to hit the ultimate appropriate end theme music and to say bye to everybody. Maybe have a little bit of a dance. We talked a little bit about dancing, how in the dancing, let's have a wave from you, Geraldine, come on. We're going to go around, we're going to...
I can't do the spotlight.
Hang on.
Yeah, go.
Give us a wave. Give us a wave, Katie, come on. Give us a wave, let's just go around on this one. John, give us a wave. Natalie, you're going to come on, but we're going to take away from you as well. And thanks everyone for taking part in Talkaoke. We'll see you next time, 28th of February.
Or something like that.
There's Natalie. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Natalie.